Welcome back. We're currently partway through a witness testimony here, the complete innocence testimony from Many Memo. And he is digging himself a hole, basically. He's given us some very useful information. We've had the poison article update slightly, which I feel is going to be relevant to something, but we haven't pressed him on this statement yet. The point is, if you'd poison someone, there'd be no reason to then go and stab the person as well. So let's press him on that. Perhaps you doubted the efficacy of the poison and sought to make sure your victim would die. That's horse dung. What? That would be like pouring pepper on your Chinese ramen before you'd even tasted it. Completely reckless. Although, it might surprise you to learn that I am a bit of an impetuous pepper pourer as it happens. Once the victim had taken the poison, she would have been only minutes away from death. And yet, this man then proceeded to stab her in the back as well. There has to have been a good reason for that. It was the reporter who gave the poison to Miss Brett, then clearly, he must have done it in prior to Ray entering the hut. Yes, that's undeniable. But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in the situation. Sorry? What change? The reporter overheard the conversation between Ray and the Englishwoman. Yes, that's it. I've come up with a new recipe. That's when Many Memo-san first found out the exact nature of the poison he used. That could be the key here. Alright, okay. If the victim had unwittingly taken the poison already, the reporter would have no reason to stab her. On the face of it, that logic sounds entirely reasonable. But there's no question that this man was responsible for Miss Brett's murder. If we could think of a plausible explanation as to why he might have stabbed her, even after the poisoning, I feel sure that everything would drop into place. That's what we should be looking for. Yes, I agree. And in order to do that, I must try to glean more information. Alright, so we want to get more information out of you, mate. Oh yes, I stabbed the English woman, and it's that very fact that proves that I'm innocent. There's nothing to do with the poison. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I already poisoned her? See, this is where I feel like... I didn't want to press him on that. That's not... No, I pressed the wrong thing. Like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We've already been through that. I wanted to present the updated article about the poison to see if we could glean more information. Alright, back we are. So, right, present this, because we need to learn what information he has going on here.
Objection!
Well, I can think of one reason. What? But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information for the newspaper article from what you overheard outside the hut? Of course he did. There can be no question of that. After all, when we were all in the laboratory together, all we were told is that it was a terrible toxin. So the information about what it does had to have been mentioned inside the hut. How would he know otherwise? And there is one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Mimbami-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink.
Objection!
Where are you going with this, counsel? Many Memo-san has made it quite clear that he observed every single thing that happened in the beach hut. If the defendant had somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it. Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison whilst the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administered to her before Mimbami-san entered the hut. Yes, very articulately put. Well, when I walked into the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison. At which point, Mini Memo-san overheard some worrying information. Worrying information? What worrying information? It's worrying me. The information which he subsequently included in his newspaper article, namely, that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy and that it couldn't be readily obtained. Absolutely. In fact, that's quite an understatement. The only possible place it could come from is my lab. And furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison would exhibit telltale signs in death. The extreme constriction of the pupils. Yes, it's quite stark when you see it. There are other poisons that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undetectable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life had been ended by the use of this particular poison, which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people. Everyone in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of this toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Bami-san being no exception. Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson, unaware of its telltale properties. In other words, someone like you, right and memo. Well, it was quite yes. It was you who stole the poison from the laboratory that day, and it was you who administered it to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that was a terrible mistake, because the poison caused such unusual symptoms and was traceable. As you listened in from the far side of the beach hut's thin walls, you learned of the facts. You'd already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involves stabbing the victim in the back through the reed screen.
Objection!
But what good could that possibly do? Isn't it obvious, Counsel? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect. Once in the blood, poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to precipitate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he? Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison use, no one would ever have suspected. This is extraordinary. Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use, which he attempted to do by plunging a knife into the middle of the victim's back. Is he okay? Can someone get a doctor? Order. The argument presented is sound. The court is satisfied that it warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward? Well, there are a number of... yes, I counter completely.
Objection!
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that in much the same way as he nurtures the remnants of his top knot, he is clinging to lost hope. Oof! Lost hope? Yeah, his hair's coming off, Hold it. Who's holding it then? Oh my, the hat's off. You pathetic, useless, fallen samurai. Fallen? You're calling fallen? My buddy, I don't need a counter-argument. What are you talking about? It should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say. Gave it to the victim, you say. Stabbed her, you say. Lots of fine theories. But I don't need a counter-argument because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence? Yes, you make it all sound so plausible, don't you? But without evidence, it means nothing. Whereas I base my news on facts. Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself. I mean what the professor said earlier in his trial. It's all here in my many memos. Every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That's why the show you news is famous for. It's the power of the printed word. Okay. But surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory authorities search when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. How's that then? Blown the story wide open? See, I, Rayton Many Memo, a mere reporter from the Show You News, couldn't possibly have stolen that poison from the professor's laboratory. My back hurts. Is she okay? Are you okay? What is she? But there can't be any question of it. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it and used it to kill. And if that's the case, as you identified, the poison itself is the definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here. What's your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin? Oh my. My point is this. There is one way that you, Many Memo-san, could have stolen the poison that day. Could he? I have heard enough verbal conjecture now, thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. What proof do you have that the witness stole the poison on the day in question? Well, we know about the fountain pen. We've looked at it quite a bit, so...
Take that!
The proof, Your Excellency, is this fountain pen. A fountain pen? How can that possibly be relevant? These magical pens somehow seem to have enough ink to write many thousands of kanji characters. I believe they arrived in our country for the first time some 15 years ago now. I swear by a weasel hair calligraphy brush and nothing else. These newfangled pens are merely a fad. Well, as a forward-thinking man of words, obviously, I love my fountain pen. Suck up a supercon? I don't know. Of sumptuous ink, and one's work is awash with words in the blink of an eye. That's right. Fountain pens have a small reservoir in the barrel, into which ink is sucked up through the nib of the pen in order to write with later. What does all this talking of sucking up ink have? And just as it's possible to suck up ink into the reservoir, it's also possible to eject it through the nib again. Of course. My word. Can this really be? Well, Many Memo-san. When you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your very lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir. It's him, take him away.
Objection!
More absurdity. That never happened. True. We've heard that there were procedures in place to prevent thefts like this from the laboratory. But would anyone have thought to look inside a fountain pen of all places? No. I'm a little ashamed to say that for fear of offending our guests, such a detailed search would not have been conducted. Well, this is quite startling, I must say. I remind the court that this pen was found in the clutches of the victim when she died. In other words, it was dropped at the scene by Many Memo-san. So the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped? Are you suggesting The natural conclusion is that in your haste to act whilst the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped your pen after you emptied the poison from it into her glass.
Objection!
There could have been a number of alternative explanations. For example, the witness could have been using a pen to write down details of his conversation with the victim. And when shocked by one of her outrageous answers, the pen fell from his quivering hand.
Objection!
No, that can't be. If it was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink? What? As you can see for yourself, if you examine the evidence, there would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. What newspaper reporter goes in to interview someone with nothing in his pen? Or a backup cartridge, you know? No, the pen was dropped after the poison that filled its reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass. Witness, what do you have to say in your defense? Quite a bit of dots. So this is how our modern justice system works, is it? So what if the ink in my pen runs dry? So what if my pencil snaps? Yeah, it's a waste. Where the hell? It's freaking Wolverine. I can always claw my way back into the game. I have plenty in reserve. Where did they go? Expected to see like 4 pencils jabbed around the judge, just in the chair around him, like, whoa! You claim I sucked the poison up into my pen. It's wild speculation, nothing more. If you thought you could bring down a fine, upstanding citizen with a trick like that, think again. It looks as though it's going to take one final decisive blow to finish this matter. As I see it, the situation is now very simple. It rests upon whether or not the witness did indeed steal the poison on the day in question. And therefore, it all depends upon whether or not the defense can prove that he did with evidence. No such evidence could possibly exist.
Objection!
Oh, but it does. Many memo-san. This is how our modern justice system works. What? In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are well past the point of speculation at this stage, I assure you. Harsh. Very well then, I call upon the defense to present the aforementioned evidence. This is it then. This will be the final piece in the puzzle. The defense can prove, by means of this item, that it was the witness's pen that was used to steal the poison.
Take that!
Counsel, what is that bottle? This bottle contains the unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question. Yes. That poison is an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids developed by my colleagues and I. It would be impossible to detect traces of it by any other method. Or, from another perspective, simply with this chemical reagent, anybody at all could check for traces of the poison. A reagent? What? One drop of the contents of this bottle on the tip of your fountain pen, Memo-san, is all it will take to solve this case beyond all reasonable doubt. No, you can't. I won't. Your crimes are bad enough, but at least know when to admit defeat. Your Excellency, the defense requests permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once. And such. Oh dear. This isn't my fault. The Empire drove me to this, trying to hold his head high as a civilization while blowing out foreign powers. I took a bomb with my pen on tried battlefield news that justice righteous most paradigm. Susato, with me. I am there. Oi! Did I do it right? That was a Susato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was a Ryutaro takedown. The instant the first drop of the reagent touched the nib of the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present. We did it. When I saw her there in the lab, the poison, the devil got hold of me and I decided to do it on a whim. I excused myself and emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing the reservoir out carefully. And then you waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison, didn't you? Into your fountain pen. Yes, that's right. Answer me one thing, Memo-san. Why did you steal it? For what purpose? Isn't it obvious? To find out what it was made of and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all, too juicy for a journo like me to pass up. Then why did the Englishwoman end up dead? I went into that hut intended to quiz her on her situation, that's all, as a reporter. A known killer enjoying full freedom, evading justice by leaving the country. Told her what I thought about it. And she just laughed in my face. Oh, what's this? A Far Eastern caveman purporting to practice journalism? Really? You must learn the difference between reporting and listening at doorways, you ignorant plebeian. What did you call me? This country, with its pretensions to a justice system, to a free press, it's really very depressing. You see our superior ways in the West, yet you lack the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you oaf. Get out and crawl back into the cave you came from. That's when I remembered about the deadly poison I happened to have in my pen at the time. What a terrible tale. In my head, I knew I should just get out of there as quickly as possible, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done, when she clearly had no remorse at all. I suppose it was my journo spirit, getting all fired up. I'd like to ask you something. Yes? You often talk about justice. But surely as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver the justice you sought. There's no justice in the press. Sorry? After that trial 9 months ago, I kept digging and digging to find out what happened in that courtroom. And finally, I discovered the truth. It was a cover-up. That's what it was. A cover-up? What do you mean? Oh. I would remind you of your position, witness. Be careful of what you say. Oh, come on. Doesn't it strike you as strange? We're suddenly not allowed to convict a foreign national. Consular jurisdiction should never have come into it. And yet that puffed-up Englishwoman was going to sail away into the sunset a free woman. The only possible explanation is that, behind the scenes, some deal had gone down between Britain and Japan. What sort of deal? I'd done my research, dug up all the dirt. It was all ready to be published. But you know what happened? The editor just tore the article up. He came under pressure from the government, you mean? If our government is going to let criminals walk free, if they're going to crush the free press, Then what choice do I have but to see that justice is done myself? Let's not forget, Memo-san, that you committed murder yourself, and you tried to lay the blame at the defendant's door. I'm sorry, but you're no better than Giselle Brett. What? The truth is, you have no right to talk about justice at all. I suppose. Guilty. It would appear that we have reached a conclusion in this trial at last. Interesting about the cover-up though, like we'll learn more details about that I assume across the game. Counsel for the defense, Ryutaro Takedown. Yes, sorry, Your Excellency, just musing in a manly way here. It's almost unbelievable that this is your first experience of the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. In truth, it very much reminded me of your cousin's exploits. Oh, Naruhodo, Ryonosuke, you mean? The way he handled the trial 9 months ago, and the way you handled this one. It gives me hope that we are genuinely entering a new era of justice in this land. That's very flattering, Your Excellency. Hearing the defense you put forward today made me feel most keenly that the future of our justice system will be forged by you and your contemporaries. Thank you. So, Prosecutor Ouchie, do you have any final thoughts? What are you going to do with your hair? Prosecutor Ouchie? Taketsuchi of the Ouchie clan, have been bested by a Kello youth, not once now, but twice. If there was any shred of my former self left, it has withered and died here today. Gosh, your journey to cultural enlightenment sure took a while, didn't it? Silence! Rather than living on in shame. I will end it all now with this blade. But that is the true path of Ouchieism. Ouchieism. One hopes that's the only way in which he'll be modelling himself after the witness. Sprig of my topknot. The time is right for farewell. Hope is lost forever. Taketsuchi. And such. My God. He's only gone and bloody done it. I love this series. It's so stupid in the right ways. You can see why it's in the same universe as Yakuza. Now, in regard to the defendant, Rei Membami-san. Yes, Your Excellency? I have reached my final verdict. I hereby find you... Oh yeah, it's not guilty, isn't it? It's guilty on the other guy. Not guilty. Well done, yay! Where did the petals come from? There's nothing up there. They're just coming in through the ceiling. That makes no sense. Court is adjourned. We did it! 13th of August, 2:38 p.m. Supreme Court of Judicature. Defendants, Antechamber. Number 3. It's over. My heart is still pounding in my chest, though. It's all I can do to just stay standing. Lawyers have such great responsibility, such a great burden to bear. Don't they, Naruhodo-san? You blinked. Suzuto! Suzuto! Thank you. Thank you so much. You were so dashing in there. Ray and Father. Honestly, I'm so touched by everything you've... Oh no, I think I'm going to cry. It wasn't easy, but together we made it. I was on the verge of tears at the end too. The only reason I'm still here is because of you. Oh no, I can't take all the credit. It took courage to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Ray. So I have to say that the congratulations belong to you. Suzuto, don't be so standoffish. Sorry? We're friends, equals, and the trial's over. So no more of this formal super humility nonsense. It's time to celebrate with swagger, to throw caution to the wind. Oh, don't throw caution around. No, what are you doing? It's a dog. Caution to the... what? I am the great defense lawyer, Ryutaro Takedown, and I'm taking you out to a milk bar tomorrow. Or something. Right, I see. I'll, think about it, Ray. At any rate, we really knocked the wind out of that horrid man, and it felt so good. Yes, it was satisfying. It really was. Isn't there anybody else we could throw together? Really? I hope you're not looking at me, Ray. Oh, my goodness. No, of course not. Of course not. There it is at last. Ray's lovely smile. You fought for your friend to the very last. As your father, I'm extremely proud of you. Defense attorney Ryutaro Takedown. Thank you. But I couldn't have done it without your help. Anyway, it's time to bid farewell to Ryutaro, I think. I shall miss him in a way, but it's back to Suzuto Mikotaba now. So, I'll never see him again then. What a terrible shame. What? Uh-oh. What is happening? Ah, Soseki-san and Inspector Hasenaga. I do hope you've been keeping well. Is it really you? Yes, I had to change my appearance for, well, obvious reasons I hope, but it's me. Suzuto Mikotaba. I don't... So dashing, so divine. No. Doubly dashing, yes, and devilishly divine. Just look at you. I had no idea, Suzuto-san Esquires, that you were locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire's cousin. Astonishingly astounding ace attorney. Poor Soseki-san. So confused. I still remember the first time I ever met him. He was in a prison cell in London. What an extraordinary conundrum it was that the unwitting student from Japan found himself embroiled in. But after Naruhodo-san's skillful defense at the Old Bailey, Soseki-san was free to return to Japan. And now he seems to have earned himself great fame as an author. Good for him. I'm stunned. That's a truly impressive disguise. Even I had no idea. And I'm Chief Inspector at the Police Bureau. Who came up with Mr. Turtle, no less? Yeah. I'm not sure you should be admitting to that, Inspector. Amazing. You're a woman of many faces, I see. Just two, really? And this was a once-in-a-lifetime event. I hope. I kinda hope not, to be honest. I'd like to see that again. Oh, I'm not a patch on you, though, Inspector. Well, I'm a professional, of course. I do worry about Inspector Hasenaga sometimes. I really do. 9 months ago, when he appeared here at the Supreme Court to testify, He was undercover, disguised as the head waiter of a restaurant. And then on the steamship to Great Britain, of course, disguised as a sailor to keep us safe on the journey. No, that didn't help you, did it, Kazuma-sama? No. From my perspective, I have to admit that I have mixed feelings about all this. I mean, now the truth has been lost forever. What do you mean? I'm talking about the murder that the Englishwoman committed at the end of last year. Ah yes, it was an English doctor she killed, as I understand it. Dr. John H. Wilson, yes. The man I invited to Japan, personally. The mystery is, why did she kill him? And now that the culprit herself is dead, we'll probably never know the answer. On the voyage to Great Britain, we had a most unexpected encounter with Mr. Herlock Sholmes. The great detective, I mean. Yes, I remember Mr. Sholmes well, of course. And for that, like, I'll mention it here, it's like, yeah, I know I'm saying it wrong. That's a thing. That's a thing. Like, the people in the previous game being all like, you're saying Sholmes wrong. Just Sholmes. It's like, it's spelled all wrong anyway, just deal with it. Dear oh dear. Ah, my arch nemesis. How lightly you utter his name. Well, according to the stories published about him in the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, the detective once had a partner who helped him solve crimes, a best friend. And that man was an exceptional doctor of medicine by the name of John H. Wilson. What? Dr. Wilson? I just can't believe that it's a coincidence. No. I think that the English doctor of medicine killed here in Japan 9 months ago must have been the friend and partner of Mr. Sholmes. And if that's really true, then the poor girl won't ever see her beloved father again. Oh. As you know, I travelled to Great Britain once myself to study. It was around the time you were born. Yes, grandmother told me about it. Upon returning to Japan, I took up my professorship at the Imperial Yume University. But I also serve another role as an advisor to the government on diplomatic affairs. Yes, I was aware of that as well. In that case, I'm sure you understand that there are some confidential matters I cannot divulge to you. Could you just tell me one thing? Why did you summon me back to Japan? It's been 2 months now since I returned. When I left England, it was because an urgent telegram had arrived from Japan. It said that you'd collapsed with a high fever, and you were growing weaker by the day. What? Where did that news come from? That's what I'd like to know. Because after that long sea voyage, I found you in fine health, Father. Was there something in Great Britain that you perceived might inconvenience me in some way? Or harm me? That's really the only explanation I can think of. Back to Great Britain we go! Dear me. Do you reserve your most cutting glares for your father, Suzuto? I'm sorry, my dear, I simply can't. Let me go! And such. Many memos, son. So, one throw wasn't enough for you? I've got one last thing to say before they take me away, Professor. Me? I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on. In that visiting student's fate. Visiting student? Sarah Brett, you mean? No, not her, the student of law who left for Great Britain 8 months ago. Oh. Ripes. What? Student of law? He must mean... Kazuma-sama. What are you talking about? What does any of this have to do with Kazuma-sama? Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. And they don't know that the guy never made it to England, that that he died on that steamship, and that he'll never... The judge? Well, I didn't expect to find him in here. What were you officers playing at? Terribly sorry, Your Excellency. I was coming to tell you that the rickshaw has arrived, Eugen. And it's a good job I came by. Yes, thank you for dealing with him. And I'll be there shortly. Oh, Your Excellency. The trial's over. I'm not Your Excellency anymore. Merely your father's friend, Sashiro Jigoku. And may I say that when I saw you last, you seem to have taken on a more dashing appearance. Susato? Did you know all along, from the start of the trial? A judge sees everything, Susato. I couldn't let you take the risk. If Seishiro here hadn't known, and then he'd recognized you. So I had a word in his ear beforehand, as an old friend. So, Seishiro, shall we? Yes, having ruled on that case, we now have various diplomatic issues to address. Before you go, Father. Sorry, my dear. We shall have to return to our earlier conversation at a later date. But well done again, both of you. You did admirably. Oh, thank you very much. What did you think of my Seishiro's sling, eh? It's been a while since I sent a man flying like that. That's quite... Whatever could Father be hiding from me? About Josiah Brett? About Dr. Wilson? Now it seems, according to the reporter, about Kazuma-sama. I'm going to have to bring this up with Father sometime, when nobody else is around. Judicial Assistant Mikitaba-san, Esquire, could I have a word? Oh, yes, of course, Saseki-san. What is it? I think perhaps it could be fate that we're meeting again like this now. You see, there's something I need to tell you. Oh? I believe, it may be related to the reason why your father summoned you back from England. This I have to hear. Please, Saseki-san, tell me at once. I will. As you know, my time in England was terrible. Cursed, I have no doubt. Such awful things I was embroiled in. Thank goodness locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire stepped in. After he secured my freedom, I couldn't wait to get on a ship back here to my homeland. Having arrived in Japan, I submitted a report about my experiences to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The next thing I knew, I had a visitor. It was your father, Professor Mikitaba. He wanted to ask me all sorts of things about my report. My father? He seemed to be especially taken with a particular part of the report. Anyway, he left eventually, having thoroughly quizzed me. But it was the very next day that he sent the telegram to you asking you to return to Japan. What was it then? The particular part my father was interested in? I don't really know exactly. But do you remember them? Those two terrible cases I was caught up in. Of course, I could never forget. The father seemed to concern himself mainly with the second case. The second one? You mean the one Mr. Shlomes forbade any of us to talk about in public? Which is why the only case involving you that any member of the public is aware of is the first. But I don't care. I don't have to listen to what that dastardly detective says. Anyway, the point is, it seems that the case somehow holds the key to all these curious unanswered questions. That horrific, hideous, heinous case, the case of the haunted lodgings. Oh my. That case somehow caused my father to summon me urgently back to Japan? thought that the whole business was over, but it seems I was wrong. Perhaps that was only the start. Perhaps the story is not yet told. Dun dun dun.
So, the mystery of that English woman's death is solved, thank goodness. And having stood in the Supreme Court now, I think I can comprehend a little better. How you must be feeling as you fight for people's freedom in a foreign land, Naruhodo-san. But actually, I'm writing to you today because of another matter. I met Soseki-san and we talked about that second case he was involved in. Father has said nothing to me, but I feel certain of it. That case holds the key to some great unsolved mystery. My notes on the case should still be in the office, tucked away at the back of the shelves on the left. Perhaps you might like to look over them again. Today, for the first time this year, it feels as though summer has arrived. The sky is a brilliant blue. It makes me long to see you again. Yours, Susato.
Oh, come on, get yourself back to England. Get back to Great Britain. So that's the end of the tutorial trial. That has opened up a lot of questions. It really has. But we're obviously going to end this part here, and in the next part, we'll go on to the next episode, The Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro. So we'll see about that in the next part then. Ta-da for now.